So we're going to be looking at the drums today. And just to give a little bit of background information, so we used 6 drum mics on the kit. And the reason for that was I used a Tascam 24-track portable recorder, and it only had 8 XLR inputs. So I could only use 6 mics on the kit. Now I could have used all 8 tracks or 8 inputs on the multi-track recorder, but we wouldn't have been able to capture the guitar and the bass. So the sacrifice was to eliminate one microphone, which I did on the upper toms. So basically, I just put the upper tom mic between both toms. So one tom wasn't getting more mic than the other. And the other good thing about the mics I use is that they were all clip-on mics. So I had a set of CAD audio mics designed for drum kits. And so they all clipped onto the rims of the snare and the toms and the floor tom. For the overheads, I used condenser mics. The other mics were dynamic, so the overheads were condenser mics. It came with the kit. And I had one mic pointing towards the floor tom and one mic pointing towards the snare. They were about 2 to 3 feet above the kit. So that's how that was set up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new track here. And I'm going to put all my drums as a subfolder. Basically, this is acting like a folder. And I'm just going to call it drum submix. I don't necessarily need the guitar and bass, but I'll just mute them for now. And then the other thing I do is I like to color code things. So I'm going to set this track color to a custom color. I like blue. I use blue. I have a certain way of doing things. This is my way of doing things. Blue for the drums. Anything that's like a submix, because I'll have a lot of submix. I'll have it for guitars. I'll have it for vocals. I set to white. Okay, so that's sort of just kind of doing some initial setup. It'll be easier to find the tracks after once they're color coded. Okay, so that's sort of my first step. I like to turn this snap off in case I need to move something around. I mean, not for drums. I don't usually move anything around for drums, but later on, just so I don't forget. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a gate on the kick and the snare. And if you're not sure what a gate is, you'll see when I start doing it. So let's listen to the kick first to give you an idea what's going on and when we apply and what it's going to sound like when we apply the gate. So as you can hear snare in there. You can hear some toms in there. So this is the reason for the gate. So you go under Effects, go to Gates, and you do the default kick gate, and I'll play it back again. So as you can see, there's a threshold here. I'm not sure what they call it. It's what you're doing is as you go higher up this way, so towards positive values, it makes it more severe, the gate more severe, to the point where you just won't hear it. So basically, I like to set it at a value that I can still hear it, but you don't want to get too extreme with it because it will just gate the whole thing out. You won't hear it. So minus 15 is not bad. Minus 18 was okay too. I mean, we're just talking small values here. So that's it for the kick. Now I'm going to go over to the snare and do the same thing. I'll let you listen to it first. So in that last section there, you heard the toms come in. So we're going to throw a gate on that snare so we don't hear all that stuff. Use the preset snare. I don't usually fool around too much with all this other stuff over here. I just use the presets. Like I was saying, the stock plugins are pretty good with Reaper, so there's not a lot you need to really do. I mean, you can go crazy and start playing with all these parameters. I'm not saying I don't ever, but when I'm just starting out, I'm just trying to kind of set the table first and then go from there. So let's hear how this snare is sounding. Okay, so that's not too bad. I can live with that. I mean, of course, again, you're gonna have to be adjusting a little bit, but it just gets the ball rolling. So let's hear the kick and snare sound together. Okay, not too bad. Now you have to remember, I mean, when you throw the overheads on, the overheads are going to be picking up the whole kit, right? So even though you're hearing a bit of cymbal sometimes, maybe a little bit of tom in the snare mic, even though it's gated, you don't want to squeeze it too much because you're still going to hear everything else, right? When it's all mixed together, you're never going to hear that. And besides, it will be blending in anyway. That's those two set. Now the toms, I'm going to do the toms as well. So the thing about the toms is you got to find out where the toms are. Because the thing about toms is you don't want to keep all this stuff in here. I'll just play it. I'll show you what I mean. So there's two ways you can go about it. You can try and put a gate on that tom mic, but for the amount of times the drummer actually goes for the toms, I'm saying there's only a couple here and there. So putting a gate on the whole thing to try and eliminate all this stuff here, all this stuff in here is like, it's kind of pointless. So what I do, and this is where it gets tedious, is I start cutting all this stuff out. Now, of course, I'll do a few examples, but I'm not going to sit here it will take me at least half an hour to go through this track here and the floor tom to cut out everything up to where the tom comes in. So like this floor tom, I know this is a floor tom here. A floor tom roll coming in here. So what I can do is, I don't need all this stuff. This is just, I like to look at I look at it as audio, but I also look at it as data. I don't need all this stuff here. This is just sound I don't need. I just call it data, sound, whatever. To me, it's just data, right? It's in a computer now. So I can just cut this out. Like I don't need to put a gate on this floor tom just for this one piece here. And there's, there's obviously a couple. There's another floor tom here. There's floor toms here. You can see where they are. There might be one here. So that's what I do. I go and I cut out what I don't need. Now I'll continue. I'll show you here. Let me just play back and I'll show you what I mean. So you hear immediately the ride comes in. And this is the kick where he goes to the kick. Try to get it close as you can. I mean, I'm just going to do a rough cut here, just so you get the idea. I'll play it back for you. Now, as you can hear that cymbal, you're going to hear that cymbal wash there. What you can do, you can put little fades in there just to fade it out a bit. Just like that. I'll play it all together. And of course, this track won't be as loud. I'm just putting it up so you can hear it. It's clipping. So basically that's what I do when it comes to the toms. I cut all this stuff out. So that's it for that. Now the overheads, I don't do anything with the overheads because they got to just stay as is. The main thing with the overheads is panning them properly so that things don't sound like a little too wonky. Like even in this one, the ride is, you want to try and put the ride, I mean, this is just the way I do it, on the right, hi-hats on the left. We're getting a bit of splash of the ride the ring from the ride landing into the left hand mic. Again, this is just the way things go. You're recording live drums. This is how it works. I'm sure in the professional studios they have their ways, but this is homebrew stuff, so we have to have realistic expectations. But it will still sound good in the end.